Hi folks, I'm Elvin Dowling, the Architect of Change. The following reading is an excerpt from my new book, License to Live, which is scheduled to be published February 2011 by Destiny Image Publishers. I'm going to read to you an excerpt from my chapter entitled, Still Here. In 1972, famed Motown writers Norman Whitfield and Barrett Strong penned a hit song popularized by the group The Temptations, which would go on to reach the top of the Billboard charts and earn the group a Grammy in 1973. The tune, Papa Was a Rolling Stone, would come to symbolize the culture into which I was born in the fall of 1974, and for me is a lyrical testimony to my fatherless childhood experience. Papa was a rolling stone, wherever he laid his hat was his home, and when he died, all he left us was alone. My father, and I use that term relatively loosely, is a man who I realized later on in my life had simply gotten in over his head due to the ants in his pants. Hey mama, folks say Papa was never much on thinking, the Temptations crooned, spent most of his time chasing women and drinking. What is unfortunate about my old man, however, is the fact that he helped to perpetuate an epidemic that would plague an entire generation of children, most of whom looked just like me and came from similar circumstances, by walking away from his responsibility as a father and a friend. Never got a chance to see him, never heard anything but bad news about him. Mama, I'm depending on you to tell me the truth. Author Stephen Ivory once observed that fatherhood is arguably the closest mortal man comes to godliness. After all, according to the good book, God created man in his own image. Man, with profound assistance from a woman, more or less, does the same thing when his seed creates a child. As a father to a young boy, I endeavored to spend much of my time, as much time as possible, with my son, remembering what it felt like to have no father to spend time with me. Here he was, a recreational park director in my own neighborhood, prior to working at my high school full-time, a man who spent all of his time around children, yet never had enough time for me. As a result, I look forward to taking my son on outings and eating dinner with him every night, understanding that this is what is important and what he will remember long after I'm gone. A recognized community leader and church minister later on in his life, my father made it possible for me to become the man who I am today through the lack of his positive example, no less, and has, to my knowledge, never reconciled himself to the fact that there are children and grandchildren who bear his DNA that he may never know. There are questions he has never answered and dreams he's never shared. In fact, in my father's case, he was more than just a rolling stone. He was an out-of-control snowball that ballooned into an avalanche of hurt and heartache for the children he left behind. Heard some story about Papa in his storefront preaching, talking about saving souls and all the time leeching, dealing in dirt and stealing in the name of the Lord. Yet and still, I appreciate the indomitable spirit that my father helped to create within me, and for that, I will always be grateful. Finally, my father has taught me, perhaps most importantly, that chains can be broken, and so can cycles. I am who he was not, and perhaps may never be. I strive to do the exact opposite for my son, what my father did for me, and in doing so, if I just hit anywhere on the dartboard, it'll be well better than what I received. Well, I guess I learned something from my father after all. This has been an excerpt from my book, License to Live, which is due out February 2011, Destiny Image Publishers. For more information, visit my website at www.architectofchange.com. This is Elvin Dowling, the Architect of Change, saying, embrace change today, achieve greatness tomorrow. Thank you.